Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Mental Roots. It's me, Nathan Day, and if you've been listening, you already know what this is about. Just tackling this big trending topic of mental health from a very authentic point of view, from a Black British point of view. And this podcast is mainly targeted for young Black males, just for us to kind of be real about our experiences, and how we think we can empower each other in regards to mental health. And obviously, as a young Black person, there's so many factors feeding into our mental health. So we discuss all the cultural stuff that feeds into it as well. This is kind of in conjunction with a short film I'm working on with Rural Media New Creative Scheme, and who's also in partnership with the BBC. I'm making a short animated film about this topic. I don't want to reveal too much on the storyline yet, but as of the time I'm recording this, we're still in the pre-production phase, refining the storyboard. We're about to work on the animatic, and the clock is ticking, so we're trying to do as much as we can with the time we've got. And today I've got my guest Hashim Diriye. So I know Hashim from my University of Derby. He graduated the year before me, and he's also, like me, a young Black Brit trying to make it big in the animation industry. And so we kind of connect that way. But yeah, Hashim, just kind of introduce yourself to the listeners and give an update on what you're doing now.
Yeah, man. So I'm just Milton Keynes born and bred Brit, essentially my expertise would be animation and art. Graduated last year, like what Nathan said, and I'm just trying to find my own personal voice, really, in this really competitive industry. So I've just been essentially just doing my illustration animations, or you could just say my creative works over the past year or so since graduating. I wouldn't say there's too much to say. It's just essentially I'm quite new in my career as well. I'm still trying to figure out what to do. There's a lot of part about animation, especially the fact that there's no limit to what you want to produce. It's all based on your imagination.
Yeah.
So really, you're the only one that limits yourself when you produce anything. I know with films, live actions and actual filmmaking, cinematography, there could be some restraints with, certain shots you can do. But with animation, what I like about it, it has no boundaries, essentially. You could practically animate whatever,
Yeah.
It's the beauty about it, And essentially, if you like to see something, or if you'd like to empower something, or like you want to see something, then you can actually do it. It's just having the right people, the right, strategy, the right, times and resources put into it. Yeah. And it's really challenging, but I actually love the challenge, because I know, as animators, or let's say creators, we're very ambitious. You can imagine how we're very ambitious. We never always hit the target, but at least we always show the process of what we do, or some of us do.
Yeah, and for me,
that's it.
For me, it's the level of gratification you get when you make something that it wasn't, like you said, it's not highly dependent on a huge production crew. It's mainly down to you and your imagination. And especially, I'd consider myself more as a quote unquote independent animator. And I know that term might be overused in many cases, but I consider myself independent in thoughts, independent in, I see myself more as a leader when it comes to animation. So when I'm working in a team, I'd like to think in my career, I'd have loads of opportunities to maybe be in a role of senior leadership, maybe whether it's directing or co-directing, producing, whatnot, which is kind of what I'm doing now, to be honest. I am, the director of my, the short animated film I'm working on. So, that's awesome. So, so Hashim, just delve into your upbringing. Obviously, we're talking about what it means to be young, Black and British, specifically as a young Black male. And I guess in our conversation today, a huge part of it will be how we use our creativity, to express kind of our experiences. In many ways, we're very similar. We are both guys of faith as well. You are a Muslim, if I'm correct, and I'm Christian. And so those things also have a huge influence on our sense of identity and significance. And so, yeah, just kind of take us through your upbringing, and what it was like growing up as a young Black Brit, if that applies to you.
Okay, so I haven't really written anything down. So this is just off the top of my head. So
Cool, that's all right.
let's go with it. So yeah, just upbringing. So pretty much, yeah, I grew up in a very, like, I would say, spiritual, devout household. Family born into Islam. Learning a lot from it, shaping who I am today and everything. Although there's not a lot of like creative push in terms from the Islamic perspective, I don't see a lot of it growing up. Although there has been shows that obviously were catered towards obviously our kind of background, but there wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a lack of representation, especially from the Islamic perspective on things. Essentially, you're probably aware, obviously, the media how it dictates our narrative. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not really like, obviously, there's not like a lot of positive outlook on it. So I would say maybe, like, because of that, that's always kind of like, spiraled a few questions in my mind, like how certain things, why they like that stuff. And there's many theories about it, but of course, the most important thing is like, what can you do so you can empower the next, gen or the next people so that they don't have to go through the same struggles, right? So
True, yeah.
I guess with animation or like anything to do with creative stuff, it was when my father used to draw quite a lot on his work breaks at lunch, He used to just do a lot of illustrations on the side and stuff. So he used to do a lot of that type of thing. And I used to see it all the time on the kitchen tables whenever I was eating breakfast or whatever, when I was like, 4, 5, 6 or something like that. So my first kind of like inspiration for drawing would be my father, right? Because although he wasn't like the best, he used to always produce stuff, Yeah, so essentially just seeing my father growing up, just drawing a lot, because he used to obviously work full-time, 9 to 5 hours. So whenever he had a time or gap, he used to just, draw a bit here and there. So that was like early stages of just always drawing. And to me, it looked like really cool stuff. So in my mind, it was like I tried to replicate it, He always used to use pen as well. He never used to sketch with pencil. It was always pen drawings, but he looked really semi-realistic. So that used to keep me like quite, intrigued. And because of my nature, I was very energetic when I was young as well. So I was always kind of like always out and about. But drawing kind of kept some level of solace or a type of like peace within myself, because it kept me focused,
Yeah.
It kept me quite grounded as well. I didn't get into too much mischief growing up either. It was kind of like it was a soothing thing, I think, with drawing. Whenever stuff was a bit chaotic at home or let's say in school, whatever, drawing was just like my safe space. That's what it was. Because and it was pretty. I liked it from that aspect. But yeah, upbringing was definitely something I'm definitely proud of. It was like a space to actually grow. Although I wasn't like dictated too much of what I wanted to do when I was older, I was kind of compared to my cousins, my peers from like London and stuff. Because they're based in West London, and they're quite high achieving students. They're really, really good. But so how African parents be when you want to be a certain way, but obviously you look at your peers, look at people who are around you, and then you kind of see your children to like mirror how they want to be, like in your image, right? Like how you want to see them, basically. So there's a lot of that. So, and I guess with that, there's obviously pressure, because obviously you're just doing enough just to get by, but then obviously after that, what's the next thing? I'm good at grades, did alright at school and everything like that, but it was like I didn't really find much joy in it. It was kind of like just to get by.
Yeah.
So I guess we can talk about that later on. School was literally, a lot of it was just getting by. I didn't feel like I found myself in school, to be honest. It took me a while to find myself. I think the gap year after uni, the gap year before I started uni was when I found that I really wanted to do animation. So,
and what did you do in that gap? Was it college, sixth form, or something else?
Oh, I did sixth form at the school I was in. So, because I went to a predominantly white school itself, my high school years. But I wouldn't say that was throughout my whole childhood life. I was in quite a lot of mixed schools, like especially first schools, middle schools. But when it came to like secondary schools, I went to predominantly white ones. So essentially, it's like keeping up with that crowd, right? And I did pretty well, alright. I did alright, because I was mainly good at maths, science, engineering, media. These type of subjects I was quite good at. But media, I think, was my first outlet to like understanding the creative industry. That was kind of like my first insight at professional level that, you can actually do stuff with media. But before that, I didn't think of it as nothing more. I just thought people just applied for jobs and did what they did.
Yeah.
But
I think schools should do a better. Well, I think times are different now, but technology and the opportunities there are with the media and sort of the various creative careers that are available through the media, I think schools should definitely promote that more, and broaden students' horizons beyond the typical subjects that we knew of growing up. In secondary school as well. For me, it was similar in terms of the demographic of the students I was with. It was interesting because in primary school, I moved around quite a lot. So I did grow up as a little kid in South London, in Clapham Park. As you can imagine, a very diverse area. My preschool days, that I remember quite a mix of ethnicities. Then I moved to Essex. We lived in Essex for about 11 years. Quite a predominantly white area. We lived in Romford. And, secondary school was interesting. I went to all boys school. It wasn't particularly our first choice or my mum's first choice. But as I was there, the school seemed to be improving. The facilities seemed to be getting better. And, I really found myself in secondary school in terms of realizing my creativity. I came to realize not only am I good at drawing, which I always knew from my nursery days, but I also started to realize I'm talented at drama. So it was my first exposure to drama in secondary school. I joined a drama and tech club that someone from outside of the school came in. There's an organization called CNT that does various creative initiatives for young people all over the world. We had someone come in to lead that drama tech society. We got introduced to, like you said, the fusion between the arts and technology, right? And we were looking at blogging, how we could blog, about our experiences and online awards that we could do. A highlight of what we did was we scripted our own short play. It was me and a few other people in the club. It wasn't a big club at all. It was just a small cast of us, probably about 5 or 6 of us. And we created this whole play using music lip syncing involved. So it was kind of like a musical, except we were miming the words and these are just random pop songs. But we created a nice story from that and we streamed it to a drama group in New York, which was cool. And so it was from then on that I was like, okay, there's ways of diversifying, not being limited to just one creative outlet. Growing up, what was it like, growing up as a young black guy? You said, in school, you were in a predominantly white school. Was there any moments that you had where, you were reminded that you were black or you felt alienated in some sort of way? What, did kind of your religious beliefs, influence how people perceived you at school as well? Just take us into that.
So pretty much growing up in, I guess, experiences in school, to be honest with you, I've learned a lot from, in a way, I wasn't really taught much about race growing up, really. Because
me neither.
It was kind of, I never really got taught about this stuff. It was just you just see people as people, and then depending how they treat, that's how you make your judgments, right?
True.
So unfortunately, the world doesn't really work like that. A lot of people do project, how certain races are, certain things are, like divisions between light skin, dark skin, all these things. You learn all these things in secondary school, and it's now I look back, it's I understand it's a lot of it is insecurity, and a lot of it is and sadly you can't join in on that crowd because especially when you're ignorant, you don't really know who you are, and you don't really have a mold to fit in. You kind of just got to join in the crowd and then see how things play out, So I guess I was reminded a lot, but it didn't really faze me because I knew deep down I'm quite, quite passionate Muslim, quite passionate Somali as well, background. But also my family being born in Tanzania, they got a lot of Swahili based culture as well. So it's although maybe Somali, but then a lot of them, they picked up traits from back in Tanzania. It's quite a civil country there. So essentially the mannerism and stuff, the way they interact with people, I kind of took that same energy and how I interacted with my peers and stuff. So I met a lot of great people, but then it was like I didn't really end up in a lot of situations where it got really, really like it got really like bad. I feel like I was very good at diffusing situations. I just had a natural thing for that, and I guess having the uncomfortable conversations with certain people, I guess in school, a lot of it was just immaturity. So there's never really a space that you can talk about this stuff. It was just like you can get the most laughs, you can get the most bands.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just some people get picked on more than others. And I was kind of like I said before, just kind of getting by. So it didn't affect me to the point where I couldn't really take it. I was very much reminded that end of the day, I'm just here for the fact that I'm in school, doing my bit, and then back home. And I know that I'm quite secure at home as well. Like I'm never really reminded of that at home. I think maybe if I was taught these things from young, and I felt like I had to be a certain way, maybe like, and I was quite insecure about myself, my identity, then maybe this would have affected me as a person. But I thank God that I'm quite secure in my own black self.
Yeah.
Maybe the only thing I was insecure about was just the fact that I was really skinny at school.
Maybe, yeah.
That's probably the only.
Yeah.
Probably that. I used to always say I want to bang gym. I want to always bang gym, get always big in that. Try and compete with other people. But that's really about it. Man. I never felt like I was depressed to be black or sad to be.
Fair enough.
I was always proud of myself. So
that's fair enough.
I guess. Yeah, it was pretty much that. But I obviously can't deny other people's experiences. How some people just maybe had a really horrible time. Some people had maybe a great time. But we were only a minority. I was definitely a minority because there was not a lot of Somalis in my area at all.
Yeah.
There was maybe about 5, 6 other black guys in my year group. But as a school as a whole, maybe good 15, 20, 30 black people. I would say that. But then the school was majority white. So a good 98% of them white, about 2-3% about, non-minority, or Asians as well.
Yeah.
So, it was pretty much that, But I would say school reminded me a lot about what I am and stuff like that. But I never really took it to heart to the point where it affected my focus, with what I wanted to do.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I think most children do not process the world through race anyway. It's when I ask people about these things, it's largely through retrospect that they're able to comment on their experiences and how, various cultural things that they had like made them struggle to fit in, So that's one thing I relate to, struggling to fit in. Obviously, it wasn't just race, but it was other things in terms of, just my social skills and, I don't know. I was just a daydreamer. I wasn't really, I don't know. There was always something weird about me where I liked the idea of being in the popular crowd, but I just wasn't. And in secondary school, people knew me more for like what I achieved rather than the charm of my character or whatnot, But I mean, the tables did flip because I did eventually become quite popular through just the different things I achieved. I found what I was good at and I excelled. And I think one thing that we can both agree with is regardless of who you are, when you find something that you're good at and you excel in that field, there's still opportunity for you, right? Obviously now we're older, we're a bit more aware of kind of the injustices that exist in our country, and we've come to learn of things like institutional racism and how certain people are not given the same employability sort of opportunities as others. But for the most part, especially today in this age of technology and the internet, there's no denying that things are much better than they used to be. There are great opportunities to really showcase your talent. So I have a more positive outlook. Like, yeah, I'm aware of the cultural and racial barriers in society, but a large amount of how we interact with those boundaries is down to our mindset. Your mindset still has probably 80% impact on, the outcome of your life. So that's my mindset. Like, would you say that's kind of your mindset as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you deal with the cards you're dealt with, man.
Yeah.
And what's important is literally how you're going to react to the situations, what you're going to take from these situations, and how you're going to, progress, But to be honest with you, this mindset is more built upon after whilst my time at uni and as I graduated.
True.
I guess I was very much bit more and more. I was probably a lot more like obviously we're obviously ignorant, right, at some parts of our life and like how we learn, but I was definitely more academically focused, but I was kind of not really aware of like
the bigger picture.
Stuff really, bigger picture. I was kind of just focused on myself. My circle was pretty small in terms of just school, and then do my Islamic school weekly on a Sunday, and then back home. And this is basically my cycle for the past since I was, I think 5-6 years old. So this was pretty much predominantly my life, you know. Yeah. I didn't get into a lot of drama really growing up, you know, and obviously coming from really like, I wouldn't say very strict parents, but very like, you know, very like well cultured, well respected parents and stuff. You want to make sure you do them proud and do them well, you know, do them right, you know. Like, although they give you the flexibility to do things, it's like making sure that you can make something, making use of what they've given you, right? And the time, the talents, and all these things. So I was never really like restricted in those aspects. It was just like I wasn't really exposed to much outside of that, you know. Yeah. So pretty much, I've kind of, and I guess that positivity was kind of instilled from early, you know. But then I was just very much ignorant. I was just in my own kind of world bubble, just interested in what I wanted to do, and that's it. As I grew, and then I actually went uni, lived with different people, different viewpoints and stuff, and then maybe reflect on a few things. But it still gives me that positive light that things will get better. But I know if you focus on the negative, that's all you're going to see. You know,
that's true. Yeah,
it's how you see it. It's your perspective on things, and I choose to make sure that I keep it quite balanced as well. You know, yes, there is a lot of injustices, but at the same time, I can't only focus on that. I've got to focus on the abundance we have as well. You know, a lot of opportunities out there. Yeah. So now I'm probably a lot more like open to the fact that there's so much more to do. Before it was like I had to see the results. You know, I had to make sure I saw things so that I can jump on board. But sometimes it's like the long game, you know, like understanding a lot of delayed gratification, a lot of and imagine with animation, you know this as well. Yeah. You cannot see the results. You can't. You actually can't. And sometimes you spend many weeks just to make sure you get the storyboard stuff right and maybe refine stuff and make sure you experiment. But that whole process that you're doing, as stressful as that can be, you know it's going to be gratifying towards the end because it's all worth it. It's always going to be worth it. Yeah. So this is kind of something that it's a key trait that animators have, or you can kind of say producers in this aspect. If you're not willing to do that, then probably this is not the career for you. But it's like, that's kind of taught me that you can transfer that skill from animation to your life in general, right? Definitely. So it's like the same thing, how you're enjoying the process in your day to day, because you need to be the best self. You need to be your best self. Yeah. The most optimal self in order to make change. Yeah. Right? And you can't do that.
And what I love about animation is that you can't cut corners in a sense. Like, it's funny because you're working with audio and visual, right? And as human beings, on a day-to-day basis, we take the audio and visual for granted. We just expect everything to work properly. Whereas with animation, you have to be mindful of everything. Like the way a character moves, you have to observe the subtleties of how everyday people move. We learn about these principles such as follow through animation. When someone stops turning, their hair doesn't stop automatically. Their hair sways for a bit and stops as well. Yeah. And then obviously we think about timing and pacing and how the way you time, the amount of frames you use for a certain action says a lot about that character and why they're doing what they're doing and what they're about to do, etc., etc. So you have to always be mindful of the details. And it's kind of similar with life in a sense that, you know, when in animation you have to be, it really captures your imagination. You really have to use your imagination to create the world that you want to see, right? And in a sense, you know, life is similar where we have to work hard. If we want to see something happen in society or happen in a certain industry, we have to be this change we want to see. And we have to be part of it. We need to get our hands dirty. We need to be interested in the details and try and get the details right as well. So there's a lot of things I could say about animation in terms of character building because it's not an easy art form. But yeah, that leads on well to mental health as well. And we've talked a little bit about having a more positive perspective on life and being aware of the opportunities we have. Is mental health, first of all, something you resonate with? Like when you hear that phrase, what comes to your mind? Like just
to be honest, like it's thrown very loosely, but it's a good thing as well. You know, it's talked about more. In terms of resonating, I guess everyone resonates to it in some degree because it's very broad. So
it is.
It's very huge, and it's good that people are talking about it, you know. But it's important to distinguish, like, to seek professional help, like from experts, and maybe confusing that with, you know, mundane things that, you know, like having a bad day is normal, right? But sometimes it can be blown out of proportion. Sometimes, you know, or other things with it. Like you may feel very anxious at certain points, but maybe it's because you got a deadline to hit, or maybe it's because you have to go to this next meeting, or let's say do this podcast, whatever. That's a normal feeling because you're trying to, you know, you're going to anticipate something that may work in your favor or may not work in your favor. You know, it's weird because I feel like it's just your body's telling you things, you know, and it's like signals, like symptoms as well, like. All these things, like I know as a society, we didn't really learn as much in the past. You know, we were quite ignorant to it, especially growing up. You probably think, you know, being anxious and stuff was just associated with scared or nervous, right? But or maybe being depressed and you're just sad. It is what it is. Just brush it off, right? But as you're growing, you learn there's more intricacies to it and there's more layers to peel from it.
Yeah,
it's good that there's conversations that spoke more about it, and also. In terms of like how it's seen in media, like essentially what I'm trying to say is, although it's kind of like populated now, it's a lot more bigger term. But this was kind of like shown throughout history always. It's just, I guess, our level of understanding because now we're probably we're like in our 20s now. Understanding mental health maybe back when we were like toddlers or maybe teens was a lot more different to now. And I guess it's just I feel like there's new definitions of it as well sometimes for certain things. It's just. It's weird. It's a weird one, but it's good that it's spoken about because it educates the next generation so they don't have to worry about certain things. Maybe certain problems that could have been prevented, now they will be more educated on it now, you
know. I'm afraid that is the end of this part of this interview. Stay tuned for the next part of the interview in the next episode. Thanks for listening. Peace.